All right, peace, peace. So today we're going to get into just a few spiritual lessons when it comes to Devil May Cry, things that are revealed regarding spiritual traumas, things that we go through. And this spiritual trauma, what we're dealing with today, and because we're coming into the season of parents and, different holidays dealing with parents. And I felt like this energy of parenthood is important because it's emanated along with many other symbols. They're all emulated and emanated through video games. And a lot of what this channel focuses on is mainly trying to decode different symbols presented in media, such as anime and games, and relating it and seeing how we can all grow from things spiritually and use it for our benefit. So in Devil May Cry, an interesting thing about parents and trauma and family trauma and things that just happen is an interesting thing that we can see with this is through the story of Dante, Vergil, and many other characters. So just a quick recap. So in Devil May Cry, Sparda's the legendary Dark Knight, and he's also the father of Dante and Vergil. And so Sparda overthrowing Mundus's armies and overthrowing Mundus himself as well, that led to a lot of backlash because the demon world, which also symbolizes, darkness as well, and the human world symbolizes the light of the Devil May Cry universe. He split the worlds in two to protect the light from the darkness. So keeping the primordial dark world away from the light world, he split the universes in a sense, and obviously that obviously got a lot of demons pissed off, and they swore vengeance on him. And in that form of vengeance, they wanted to go after his family and people that he cared about and figure out a way to put the worlds back together again. And none of them were powerful enough to stop him. And the only way things were able to go haywire again was when he disappeared in unknown events. So he went through great lengths to protect humans and keep demons away from them. And why did he go through these great lengths? Spiritually, what we have to look at is there's a separation between a small separation, a very, very subtle separation between the spiritual world and the human world. And this being done in Devil May Cry, separating the human world from the dark world or from the demon world, what it's really saying is that it's limiting that connection that was previously made. And so you can also see this in different mythologies where you have the Olympians, they overthrow the Titans in Greek mythology, separating the previous world and stepping into a different age. And the world will cycle through different ages, such as the Dark Age, the Gilded Age, and or the Light Age as well. There's different yugas in Hinduism. So these different cycles represent the different timelines that the worlds go through as a result of separation and integration of spirituality. They don't necessarily give a definite answer as to why, but you can infer that Sparda did that simply because he wanted to protect those he cared about. Because demons in the Devil May Cry universe, they used to be higher intelligent beings, but they had devolved into, power hungry and devastating beings that seek nothing but to eradicate whatever they feel is beneath them, and there's a constant battle between them and humanity. But that constant battle, we have to recognize that constant battle is mainly, it's a symbolic thing that occurs within all of us, the light and the dark side battling. And you can see this through, different characters inside a different series as well. You have the light battling darkness, but the perfect union is what allows a spiritual transgression, or what allows and what solves a story in essence. And so you also have the mother, which is Eva, and that was his lover, and she was a human. And Eva bore him twins, the Dante and Vergil as well. So eventually, those demons, they come, and you see in Devil May Cry 5, and they also tell you earlier in the series as well, and I'm sure they say in the anime, that the demons come and they attack both Eva, Dante, and Vergil. And so what this ends up doing is it separates their entire family. Eva's killed in the attack, but before she's killed, she tells Dante to take on a new identity and, go be a man and, just basically continue his life and, leave his heritage behind, and just live as a normal human being. She goes and she looks for Vergil, but when she goes to look for Vergil, she dies in the process. But Vergil was outside hiding in the park. Now, what ended up happening with Vergil was that he did survive. He was attacked by the demons too, but he ended up awakening his devil trigger. Or if you really wanna put a spiritual twist on it, his soul protected him because he still had, a mission to fulfill for himself, and that's why he ended up surviving. That's why Dante also ended up surviving, but the brothers were separated in the process. And so the effects that this had, losing parents early in the childhood, Sparda's early disappearance, unknown disappearance, and Eva's death, at the hands of their own blood, because Dante and Vergil, they're also half demon too. The effects that this had on Dante wanted to completely distance himself from who he truly was. Not only just through his name, because he took up the name Tony Redgrave, but also through his demon blood as well. He didn't want to accept whatever was going on with him, and he just wanted to live as a new person and, build different connections and, use his power for good in whatever possible way he could have. And he tried doing that, and you can see in the manga as well, Dante tries doing that as Tony Redgrave, but this backfires because there are still other demons looking to kill him specifically, and if they can't kill him, they'll kill people around him. And so they continue doing that, and Dante loses a lot of people in the process, and he knows he can do things about this if he takes responsibility, and he eventually does have to. And that the armies, Mundus's armies continuously attacking him, you can see that as synchronicity. When we run away from different parts of ourselves, they tend to manifest in the physical world to teach us lessons. So, whatever we ignore, it comes up either in people that we encounter or situations that we encounter as well, and that we have to deal with. And those situations, how we deal with them determines whether we can move on to the next level and break through and actually turn our pain, our trauma, or whatever we need to work through into something powerful for us, or if it determines whether we either have to come back and learn a lesson, whether it's in this life or in another one, or whether we just keep repeating things over and over again. Because if you, obviously, it's the same thing like with school. If you don't pass your classes, if you don't get perfect, or not perfect grades, but if you don't get good grades, you don't move on to the next material unless you have a perfect understanding of what's going on. So it's the same thing that happened with Dante. These things kept happening over and over again until he decided, hey, you know what? I need to accept who I am. I'm going to use my actual name now, and I'm going to take up my sword, and I'm actually going to fight against, these armies that are attacking us. I'm going to fight against, I'm going to get to the bottom of this and figure out the truth of what's going on. And so that's why Dante becomes a devil hunter in the process. And that's what allows the story of Devil May Cry to begin. So this moving forward is symbolic. He had to fight back and accept himself. And the effects that it had on Vergil not knowing that his mother went to look for him in that attack, he felt abandoned. Not only did he feel abandoned because his father disappeared, and both Dante and Vergil admired their father in their early childhood, but Vergil admired him more, and he really cared about his demon side a little bit more because he understood just how much value it really had when he saw the power that his father had and how he used it for good. And the only way he could prevent this from happening, he deduced that the only way he could prevent this from happening is by gaining power. And that's why Vergil continuously says that he needs more power. His father was a symbol of power. Sparda was a symbol of power. Not only did he overthrow Mundus, who was the most powerful demon at the time as the demon king, but he overthrew his armies as well and made everyone submit, and he split the worlds into two. So, and when he realized this, he embraced his roots, he embraced his identity, but he distanced himself from the light within. He distanced himself from the other side of him, which is his human side. And if you watch the other videos dealing with Vergil needs to accept his human side as well so he can understand his journey, his mission, and his purpose here. And it's the same thing with us. When you come into a different level of spiritual understanding, you really want to focus on the spiritual side of things. You really want to focus on elevating yourself and growing spiritually. But you also have to understand that you're here as a human in a human form for a reason. And as much as you might want to take on a Gnostic mindset, you might not want to You might not want to go through different lessons. You might not want to be on Earth. You have to understand you're here on Earth for a reason, and until you die, you have to fulfill whatever mission or fulfill whatever reason that you came here for. Earth is still a school. So however far along you are in that school, you have to take it seriously, take your lesson seriously, not too seriously to where you ignore and you forget to have fun, but you have to understand that, you just have to follow what you came here for, and that's what essentially what we have to do. And so Vergil not doing that, but instead seeking power, which still is a part of his path, but he's forgetting why he is partially human in the first place, or partially on the journey in the first place. Every time I say, you're human, or you're going through humanity, or living your life on Earth, just think of it as a journey. So Vergil, the way he overcame this is his spirit led him to the Cliphot, or the Cliff-off, or the tree of knowledge, right? And eating that fruit from the tree of knowledge, when he became Urizen, when he ate the fruit and he divided himself, he divided his demon side and his human side into two separate entities. His human side was dying while his demon side was gaining knowledge through eating from the fruit, or from the tree of knowledge, eating the fruit from the tree of knowledge. And that's essentially what the Cliphot represents in Devil May Cry 5. Just think of it as a tree of knowledge, and how both Adam and Eve ate it and they became like gods. They understood good and evil. When Vergil ate that fruit, he understood who he truly was. The Cliphot is nothing more than a symbol of the subconscious mind, that which knows all. It's also connected to the mind of God, because God knows all. So Vergil in the fifth game, Devil May Cry 5, Devil May Cry 5 is the fifth game, and if you deduce the number 5, you also have the 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, and ether. And those five elements also come together in the fifth Sephira, or the hidden Sephira, which would be the fifth Sephira of the Kabbalah, or the Tree of Life, which is called Doth. And that Doth allows you to, if you go through the Doth, it leads you to the Cliphot. So, and that you'll understand this the more you study Kabbalah and Cliphot as well. You just have to read some books on it. So get some books on it if you don't have it already. But when he eats that, he emerges stronger than before. And the reason why he emerges stronger than before is because he gets a deeper understanding of who and what he truly is. And this is why he eventually ends up merging with V, unintentionally as Urizen, but intentionally through his human side, because there ends up being a synchronistic connection. And when Vergil merges and he accepts that part of himself, now he's much stronger than he was previously. But he couldn't have been that unless he went through that journey and he understood what really went on. Dante is the one that brings him the revelation that his mother still looked for him, and that does trigger a part of Vergil's heart, whether he shows it or not, because as V, he still wanted answers. And this is why he went to Trish before he reunited with himself and told her his story, but she ended up saying that she's not his mother, she just looks like her. So those are two symbols of the spiritual traumas and familial traumas that can happen in the human experience through Dante and Vergil. And you can also see the effects on Nero as well, just lesser, because Nero is more meant to be a different symbol than Dante and Vergil were. But Vergil's absence in Nero's life led to a lack of knowledge just of his family in general. And Vergil also didn't even know that he had a son in the first place. He found out through Dante, and the unknown fate of his mother led to Nero having a lack of understanding of who he truly was. But Nero being a symbol of understanding by symbolizing the pineal gland, symbolizing the third eye through how he dresses. Nero wears dark indigo, or he wears black. Nero means black. So, and that's connected to the third eye chakra. And that's also connected to the subconscious mind. So as a result of Nero awakening his devil bringer, he keeps it secret until it's time to protect those he cares about. And this is why Nero is introduced in the fourth game, which represents the fourth chakra, the heart chakra. And that's why the fourth game, and as I decoded in the previous video, Devil May Cry 4 is based upon love. So Nero is meant to be a symbol of love as well. And so this led to Nero just having a more positive effect. He really wants to know who and what he truly is. All these things, they lead back to our journey for knowledge of self. And that's really what spirituality is truly about. It's more than just what you wear and how you dress and how you talk. It's more about you coming into an understanding of who and what you truly are within, and then using that to achieve your mission here, and then returning back to your paradise, returning back to the God essence, in the higher plane after your mission's done here. So, and then the effects of this also had on Mary, or Lady, in Devil May Cry 3. Her father sacrificed her mother, and he went to great ends. Arkham went to great ends to use everyone around him, including his daughter, to achieve ultimate power. And this type of abusive relationship led to Lady relinquishing her name as Mary until she met Dante, who gave her the name Lady affectionately later on. But after dealing the final blow to Arkham, because she does commit patricide, she's still heartbroken because she still loved him. And the thing is, sure, she once loved him earlier in her life. And the thing is that we had to see with our parents is that no matter how dark things can really get, we have to understand that our parents are only human. And despite how we might feel, no one's perfect. There's a dark and a light when it comes to everyone. I myself was semi-orphaned. I did grow up with my mother, but my mother was abusive, and problems with alcohol and all these types of things. And I was distanced from my father until later on in my life. Now he and I have a good connection, but they weren't together. And these things, growing up, I wanted answers similar to these characters, right? Everybody wants answers to whether or not you're connected with your parents or not. Even if you are connected, your parents could be there, and some of them might feel miles away simply because of work or because of whatever vices that they might have or whatever traumas they may have. Going through the human experience, we pick up many different things that affect all of us. And if we choose to have children, this also affects them as well, because now we're bringing, new spirits into the fold of what goes on in our family. So there's a million different things that could happen. And I'm not excusing anyone's actions, in terms of like abusive parents and parents that just probably shouldn't be a part of your lives, because like I would say for myself, if you don't want to give negativity place in your life if you're doing better, right? And so these are decisions that we have to make, but they make you better. And I remember when I was getting a reading from Khadija Samdi. If you don't know her, look into her, samdireadings.com. But I remember I got a reading, and a part of that reading is where you describe your entire life, everything that happened. And so I'm going through everything that did occur with me. And because of the adversity I faced, with my family and the things that happened between my mother and I, that allowed, that gave way for her to say that, that I chose good parents before I came to this life. And so, we like to think, good parents, they take care of you, they do, they educate you, and they, nothing bad ever happens. They make sure that you succeed in life. But the truth of the matter is you're responsible for who you become in life, and your parents are nothing more than, their sole mission is to bring you here. But that's it. And I can see what she meant, because I meditated on this and I pondered for a while, and I really had to come to understanding that the adversity that I faced made me a stronger man at the end of the day, because I chose to benefit myself by learning new things, by allowing myself to come to an understanding of the things that I went through, give myself the proper therapy, and deal with the emotional issues that came with those things. And I chose to be a better person for myself. I chose to choose spiritual growth rather than choosing to allow these experiences to define me, or allowing them to confine me too, because we can become a prisoner of our emotions. A lot of these things that happen, they sit in the heart chakra, they sit in the sacral chakra, that happen in our childhood, our experiences and our connection with others, our ability to connect with others. And when you have negative experience in your childhood, you don't feel safe. You don't feel safe connecting with others. You don't feel safe going out into the world. And sometimes we don't deal with these things, and they end up trickling down the line when we have children. And This is just something that we have to understand within ourselves, and no one's ever going to live up to the perfect model. And sometimes that might be a good thing. It's just like you have to choose how you want to see it. When you change your perspective on the things that happen to you and you use them for growth rather than using them for destruction, or rather than using them as an excuse, to be a certain way, attaching to it and, allowing it to consume you from the inside out. When you use these things for benefits and actually growth, then you can truly transform. So all the adversity that we face in life, the more that you prescribe these things as for someone else did something to you, the more power you're giving them to hold over you. Because the only one who can fix those things is truly you. But when you blame and you leave these things for others to fix, then no one can ever truly fix it for you. Even if they're your parents, no amount of apologies, no amount of anything can fix it for you. You have to forgive them for yourself. You don't necessarily have to forgive them for them and allow negative people, toxic people back into your life. Or you don't necessarily have to continue certain relationships. And this is beyond just parents too. Anything that might not be right for you. But another thing is that, you want to take these experiences, you want to use them to elevate yourself. There's, you can either choose to be a victim, or you can choose to be successful despite all that's happened to you. And you see this through many different people who are very transparent about their upbringing. Like David Goggins, for example. He wrote a whole book talking about everything that he went through in his life. And I found nothing short of inspirational. I still read his book multiple times every year, because I relate to him, through the similar things that he went through. And I'll make a different video really detailing my experience growing up, my experience in the military too in the future, and really putting all this stuff full circle. But I want to keep things within the scope of this Devil May Cry and spirituality right now. But I really felt a connection to that. And you look at people like him, and also other people as well. They take these things and they use them as fuel to become someone new, or tap into what's within and use that power within, and understand that these experiences and make it a lesson for them, rather than making it something that keeps them in the past. You can't continue living in the past. The past is nothing more than a mirror or reflection for lessons that we're supposed to take and use them to become the best versions of ourselves, constantly refining, constantly ever changing, and ever elevating too. So that's really what I wanted to get into for the Devil May Cry and spiritual traumas, family traumas. So if you really got something out of this video, just make sure you subscribe. We have to continue growing this channel, share this video around, and look forward to more content in the future. Peace.